Chapter 44. The choking smoke filled up the interior of the dungeon. Cough, cough. Eugene Ho covered his nose with the back of his wrist and loudly coughed out. However, he was far more worried about Jin Woo at the moment. The firepower of the Lizardman mage was that strong. Fortunately, Jin Woo rapidly emerged from the smoke completely unscathed, meaning there was no need to worry in the first place. Eugene Ho inwardly exclaimed out in admiration. As expected of Hyung Nim, Jin Woo was able to evade the attacks of the lizard men, reputedly the hardest monsters to deal with in dungeons ranked C, without getting a single hair disturbed. Not only that, from a mage, too, from Eugene Ho's perspective, it was as if Jin Woo was getting faster every day. I must be imagining things, right? Meanwhile, Jin Woo spat out pieces of rubble that somehow found their way inside his mouth. Tui. The color of his saliva landing on the ground was black. These be asterisk starts. He became really set off by the fact that he had to breathe in unhealthy smoke because of a lone lizard and its cheap tricks. And his dissatisfaction could be seen clearly in his expression. Jin Woo was frowning deeply now. You've used skill, intimidation. His angrily glaring eyes shot out powerful murderous intent. Effect, fear has been activated. All stats of the targets will be reduced by 50% for 1 minute. The lizard men began panicking grandly after being exposed to his powerful murderous intent. Kurururika. Jin Woo didn't miss this chance and threw the poison fang of Kasaka with everything he had. The dagger flew in a dead straight line and splendidly pierced the forehead of one of the lizard spearmen. Stab! The speed of Jin Woo's flying dagger was too fast for a weakened monster to evade. Tsururika. The remaining spearman roared out in anger after witnessing the death of its comrade. However, Jin Woo was no longer standing where the creature's spear was pointing at. Surikonika. The lizard man mage cried out nervously. Surikonika. When the mage repeated the same words as before, the spearman turned around to face the mage and roared out. Tsuruka. The spearman bared its fangs and approached the mage in a threatening manner. However, the mage didn't back down either. Tsuruik. It happened then. Kak! Suddenly, the spearman's chest burst open. The mage's face was now covered in blood. It cried out in alarm and hurriedly took several steps back. Tsuruak. That stealth slowly came undone and the spear stabbing through the chest of the lizard spearman revealed itself. The man holding that spear was, of course, Jin Woo. When he let go of the shaft, both the spear and the lizard man that got skewered by it crashed to the ground simultaneously. Thud! In the meantime, Jin Woo rapidly recovered his poison fang of Kasaka from the head of the other lizard spearman. Tsuruerik. Red beams of light appeared again in the hands of the lizard man mage. However, Jin Woo didn't give it time to complete its actions. Dash! The distance between Jin Woo and the mage disappeared in an instant. The mage's repulsive-looking reptilian eyes grew really wide. Pushuhi Jin Woo ducked and avoided the flames erupting out from the mage, slid to the monster's rear, and stabbed his dagger near the target's spinal area. Vital points targeting. Stab! The mage cried out in pain. But, when Jin Woo stabbed again, the following scream wasn't as lengthy as the previous one. Stab! Kak! The lizard man mage spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed forward. Plop! Jin Woo inwardly punched the air. No matter who judged it, that was an excellent victory for sure. Very nice. And as if to congratulate him on his victory, he could hear the system's crisp mechanical beep ring inside his head. T-tiering, level up. Player has reached the required level. A strange message followed right after the familiar one. Required level? Having only heard this simple message, he couldn't figure out what was going on here. But by the time the following mechanical beep rang, Jin Woo ended up expending a huge amount of willpower just to calm his heart that beat so hard to the point of causing him pain. Tearing. Class Change Quest is now available. Will you take on the Class Change Quest now? Y/N/C, Class Change Quest. He was so focused on raising his levels and his stats that he had been forgetting all about a certain column in his status window. Name, Song Jin Woo. Level, 40. Class, None. Indeed, that would the third column in his status window, the class. And now, he was given an opportunity to replace that none with another word. He'd be given a class. In most video games, a character would receive many benefits after getting a class. It'd be no different with the system, since it operated almost the same as a game. Thump, thump. His heart was beating harder and faster now, when he realized that he'd be one step closer to the goal of being strong after going through with this quest. He simply could not calm himself down anymore. Will you take on the class change quest now? Y/N. Yes and no continued to flicker in front of his eyes. Of course, I would. What kind of an idiot would refuse such an opportunity? Jinwoo was about to choose yes and take on the quest to change his class. However, he stopped almost instinctively. No, hang on a sec. Who knew just what kind of a quest might show up here? Following right after the notice from his instincts, the warning bells from his brain rang true and clear inside his head. I'm inside a dungeon. A dungeon was one of the most dangerous places in the world. Even though he was fully accustomed to the rank C dungeons by now, a dungeon was still a dungeon after all. There was no reason for him to increase the risk even more. Besides, Eugene Ho was standing next to him as well. It wasn't as if he didn't trust the kid, no. Still, he didn't have any particular reason to let the kid in on the existence of the system, or explain the weird phenomenon that might occur when he changed his class. Things would get too complicated in this way. And also, the content of the quest might end up hurting Eugene Ho, too. What if strong monsters suddenly appeared out of thin air? Well, that would be more preferable, actually. Because, he'd only have to kill those monsters and that would be the end. But, a quest asking for something more than that could show up. For instance, something similar to those 2 emergency quests he had to complete in the past. The goal of the quest could be to eliminate the nearest hunters. It was a distinct possibility. Sure, it was nothing but speculation at this point in time, but still possessing an excellent sense of timing, Eugene Ho walked over and called out to him. Hyung Nim. The magic the lizard man mage flung about must have landed pretty close to him, because he was covered from top to bottom in dust. Just how did you do that? Disappearing and reappearing again? Did you have a skill like that before? Eugene Ho's eyes sparkled brightly as he spoke. He looked really pumped up, too. He must have found the rare skill, stealth, really mystifying or some such. Well, I find your appearance far more mystifying, kid. Instead of a reply, Jinwoo pulled out a handkerchief from his inventory. He got this as a reward from the daily quest. Hyung Nim. Jinwoo used that cloth to mercilessly rub Eugene Ho's face. Fu huff. The previously white handkerchief was now dyed jet black. Eugene Ho took a look at the fabric and only then realized what the state of his face was like. He embarrassedly retreated to a corner and carefully wiped his face clean. Hey, Jin Ho. Yes, Hyung Nim. Something urgent just came up. Eugene Ho quickly raised his head. Are you planning to leave now? After we finish up here? Understood. Then, I'll cancel our bookings for the remaining gates. Eugene Ho couldn't show it in front of Jinwoo, but he was feeling rather pained about the 3 gates that had been booked by him. My funds are running out quickly, too. Eugene Ho didn't have any method to earn money, so the allowances he got were basically everything he had. He was doing this without his father's knowledge, so the amount of cash he could shift around was limited. If he had to cancel the bookings, then he wouldn't get refunds on the booking fees he paid in advance. It was the same as him throwing money away. So, how could he not feel pained about this? Also, because of this unusual method of clearing gates, he ended up spending more than usual for today's raids. But now, he had to throw away his investment, just like that. Eugene Ho's shoulders couldn't help but droop real low, almost instinctively. However, Jinwoo replied with an unmoved expression. Why are you canceling our bookings and wasting money like that? Eugene Ho tilted his head. Pardon? If we don't enter a gate within 2 days of booking it, our permit will be automatically rescinded, Hyung Nim. Of course, Jinwoo already knew something like that. Leave them to me. I'll sort them out. Did Jinwoo think of a good way to resolve this? Yu Jinho was curious, but at the same time, he felt relieved as well. Inside the headquarters of the White Tiger Guild, Chief On, just what on earth were you thinking? A loud roar reverberated within the offices of the second division. The owner of that roar was Baek Yunho. He was none other than the master of the White Tiger Guild, and its CEO as well. It could never be a good thing if a CEO-level character made his way down to the lower floors, to make his ire known to his staff members. How can any of this make sense? How can there be no gates to train our new recruits? Don't you realize that you've delayed the training schedule by 4 days, already? All the employees within the second division lowered their heads. They all looked anxious, wondering if they would also end up in the crosshair. Chief On Songmin too lowered his head as Baek Yunho continued to point and shout at him. On Songmin wasn't dumb or inexperienced enough to P*SS off his superior officer even further by replying to every little thing being said, in the way Hyun Ki-cheol would have done. In cases like this, keeping his mouth shut was for the best, whether the boss man knew On Songmin's thoughts or not. Baek Yunho angrily shook around the report from the second division that showed up on his desk this morning. You're using this as an excuse. The other team paid far higher bids so we can't book a single gate? Are you saying our guild lacks enough funds? Or is the other party being supported by a bloody billionaire or something? On Songmin's lips twitched real hard just then, but he endured like a champ and didn't say anything. He made a promise to Jinwoo, after all. If I open my mouth now, I'd end up blabbering about Yu Jinho and Song Jinwoo. Not knowing the pained inner thoughts of On Songmin, Baek Yunho continued to roar at the top of his lungs, loud enough to shake the entire office. I don't care whether it's 100 million, 200, just book the D*MN gates. Do you understand me? It happened, then. Suddenly, On Songmin's phone began ringing loudly. I'm sorry I couldn't answer you earlier, I was meeting a friend, shy. When he sneaked a glance at his phone to confirm who the caller was, On Songmin's eyes grew real wide. Sir, I need to answer this call. The second division's main role was to recruit new talents, and nothing was more important to them than good timing. And, On Songmin was the chief of that second division. Even if On Songmin had made a big blunder, no matter how angry Baek Yunho got, stopping him from answering that call was not a smart thing to do. What are you doing, Chief On? Answer it quickly. Baek Yunho consented to it with an unhappy voice. On Songmin bowed his head slightly, asking Baek Yunho for his understanding, and he quickly answered the call. Hello, On Songmin from the White Tiger Guild speaking. While On Songmin was answering the call, Baek Yunho crossed his arms and waited for it to end. Yes, I understand. If you're waiting for us by the ground floor cafe, I shall go there right away. Yes, see you then. On Songmin ended the call and quickly spoke up. Sir, looks like I'll have to go downstairs for a moment. On Songmin was the ace of the second division. If such a man was getting ready to rush downstairs with only one phone call, even when he was facing his boss's fury, by any chance, was that call related to scouting someone? Yes, sir. Seeing that confident, assured face of On Songmin, Baek Yunho realized that something major was going on here. Chief On is personally trying to scout this person, which could only mean that the other guy was someone extraordinary, right? Baek Yunho's angrily crumpled visage reverted back to a smiling one in an instant. How can I stand in the way of our scouting specialist trying to do his job? Don't worry about the matters up here and do your best downstairs.